Years. In the 8th or 9th century, the first forks were invented. Forks have only came around in recent years. In the 8th or 9th century, the first forks were invented. In the 11th century, in the Byzantine Empire, illustration had the picture of two men eating with a fork-like objects. To quote the article Street, Peter Damian, a hermit and ascetic, criticized a Byzantine-born Venetian princess for her excessive delicacy. It was the luxury of her habits that she designed not to touch her food with her fingers, but would command her eunuchs to cut it up into small pieces, which she would impale on a certain golden instrument with two prongs and thus carry to her mouth. Damien was sufficiently offended by the woman's table manners that when she died of the plague, he regarded it as a just punishment from God for her vanity. In an article of Feeding Desire, Sarah Coffin says the fork could have been relatively unused because it resembles the devil's pitchfork, which makes some sense if you look at a fork for long enough. At the time, most forks were either so thick they could hold a cut of meat, or so small and dainty that they could really only be used for sweets. By the 19th century, the fork was actually used at the table quite often. In 1926, Herbert Hoover convinced sterling silverware to limit the amount of different consumption utensils to 55 per pattern of silverware. There were lobster forks, meat forks, lettuce forks, and ice cream forks, which look like metal sporks to me. There is also the future of silverware, which could mean many things, like it could just be the same for the next 1,100 years, or in a month the world could change silverware and then we eat with chair things or something. We can't accurately predict the future yet. There is controversy with the ways that you eat with a fork. Like, Americans eat with their forks upside down compared to the rest of the world. Because in America they arrive later than in other countries, creating the fork to be used like a spoon. Again, things relating to sporks. Of course, there is a lot more to talk about, but I'm afraid that this is going to take at least all 4 minutes. So forks are strange and interesting, and it's impressive how much they have changed over time. So this strange mechanism of consumption is probably going to be here to stay. So if you have any questions, this would be the time to ask.